Okay, today I'm going to teach you how to knit. Knitting is not only the name of the whole overall process, but it's also the name of a pattern of stitches. You're probably familiar with this look of knitting with the V's, the rows of V's. This is probably what most of your store-bought sweaters look like. This is actually knitting a row of knit stitches, and then when you flip it, you row a knit of purl stitches. But I'm going to show you how to knit first, and then in later videos I'll show you how to purl. When you knit row after row, you get what's called the garter stitch, and that's what this looks like. It's a series of lines of like little knots or bumps. So that's what we're going to do today. And how you start, this is what we had when we left on the last video. When you start knitting, you're going to want to kind of bring your knitting up to the end so that the stitches move off the knitting needles from one to the other easily. And what you do is you take your other knitting needle, your empty one, and see how there's a knot right here. You're going to want to stick it underneath that loop, and then take this yarn in your right hand, and you're going to want to wrap it around that needle, and then flip it under, and then knock it off the other needle. You take it under the knot, or above the knot, through the loop. You're going to move from front to back, like that, and bring it around, bring it under, and flip it off. Stick it through from front to back, around, bring it under, and off. The front to back motion is important because when you start purling, you're going to be actually doing the opposite. You're going to be moving it from back to front. And you'll learn to keep your knitting or your yarn in the back, and when you purl, you'll bring it to the front. But right now we're just knitting. So above the knot, through the loop, around, and through. And as you learn how to knit, you'll do something which, well, I did, unless you really get it really right to the beginning. You're going to do something called dropping stitches, and pretty much it's just a mistake. And my advice is just to plow through, because at this point you're just sort of trying to get the rhythm. I wouldn't start a huge important process right at the beginning, because you're going to get frustrated with yourself. If you knit and you drop stitches, it'll kind of ruin the project. And there are fancy ways of going back through and fixing drop stitches, but my advice is just to practice, and eventually you'll stop dropping them. I mean, I do it occasionally, and I can figure it out because the piece will probably be really important to me. But when you're just practicing like this, just keep plowing through. You'll get, if you do it enough times, you'll get to something that looks somewhat like knitting. Okay, and then the last one comes off. You're going to get all bound up like this. And that's your first row. And I'm going to do one more row so that I can show you how you flip it over and do it again. So now you're at the other end of this needle. So you just take it the same way, above the knot, and wrap it around. And this is this particular pattern has 20 stitches on it. We're just going to make a square. This is just an example, like a sample. And again, you can use all different size needles and all different size yarns. I'm just trying to use a large yarn so that it's easy to see the patterns. This is a store-bought yarn. And also, light colored yarns seem to be easier to see what's going on in your knitting than darker yarns. I sometimes have a hard time with darker yarns. You see as it starts coming, you start to get the little bumps of the garter, which is here. The garter stitch is used, it's not just a learning process, it's also used like a lot of times on cuffs and collars and stuff to trim up stuff. You can do, once you learn how to purl, you can do alternating knitting and purling, and you can do it in all different kinds of patterns, and you'll get alternates of this with this. You can do stripes, you can do blocks or whatever. But the next video I'll teach you how to purl.